Welcome to the Vactorverse. I am not Vactor, but he's here. Or here. I don't know which way the cameras are going to be aligned, but he's here. Who am I? Well, I'm Wonder Rob, and why am I here? Well, I am here to welcome you to a secret level of the Sandbox Gamers podcast, a bonus episode, if you will. The Sandbox Gamers is a podcast where three vidgets meet weekly to talk about life, love, and the pursuit of Vidya. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm your co-host with the most, Wonder Rob, coming at you live. Well, semi-live, that is, from Southern California. And on the line with me are two of my best Arizona friends in the metaverse. The Talos of our podcast, Vactor. Yep, that's him. And for the audio listeners, because scrolls are silent, they sit in secret, Jeff. And the Samuel L. Jeffson of our podcast, Jeffrey W. the second.
Is I'm tired of those motherfucking scrolls on this motherfucking plane. Is that what I'm supposed to do?
Yeah. And I'm Maria Hill. I died. Spoiler alert. Thanks for joining us. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit subscribe. You can find the Sandbox Gamers and Vactorverse both on YouTube. Also, the audio podcast, obviously, wherever you get your podcasts. We're on TikTok. We're on Instagram. We're on all the places. So hit subscribe. Press all the buttons. Thank you so much. Now, this is a very special secret episode of the Sandbox Gamers and the Vactorverse. Like I had mentioned, we are going to be discussing the state of the MCU. Phase 4 and beyond. We just recently completed Secret Invasion, and by we, I mean me, but the Secret Invasion has been finished for a little bit of time now. So it's a good time to hop in and discuss everything MCU, the failures, the highlights, and where we're going from beyond. And are we still even on the hype train? That's a good question. All right. So one thing that we always say on the Sandbox Gamers podcast, maybe you Vactorverse listeners aren't super familiar if you don't, do crossover episodes that often, is that Jeff W. is always DTF. That stands for Down to Talk Fun, if you didn't know. So let's hop into the strategy guides section of the pod. We're going to talk first Secret Invasion, again, which just wrapped up its run a few weeks ago on Disney Plus, a 6-episode miniseries, starring the one and only Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury. This is a adaptation of the Secret Invasion storyline in the comics by name only, as far as I'm aware. Of course, one of us is a comic book expert here, and I'm sure he'll let us know. His name's Jeff. So he'll tell us what's going on. Now, Jeff, let's just talk about the elephant in the room for just a second. Jeff, out of the three of us, is the only one who has not watched Secret Invasion. He fell off the hype train. He stopped at the last stop to get some Cheez-Its. And he will be boarding the hype train again at the next stop, which is the Marvels. But Vactor and I are still on. We're still buckled in and ready to go. Although we're loosening, our hands are on the buckle. You never know what we're gonna be doing. You gotta squeeze the buckle. Okay, so tell us about Secret Invasion, Vactor, as far as what the storyline was in the comics versus how that applies to the TV show.
Yeah, Secret Invasion was the crossover event that followed Civil War, directly followed Civil War. So Rob was in the thick of it at the time.
Yeah.
Civil War was when Rob and I really got talking about comic books back in the day when we both worked at Hollywood Video, and we were reading it as issue to issue as it was coming out.
Yeah.
With Secret Invasion, I can't remember. Did you read the whole series, or did you kind of fall off?
I fell off of it a little bit at the time. Now, coincidentally, I can look at my comic book shelf over here. I do have the collection of Secret Invasion over here.
Yes.
But at the time, I only really got through a few issues.
Okay. So Secret Invasion, just to explain for everyone who is not caught up on the comic books, the Skrulls had been infiltrating the Marvel Universe for decades. This was before Jeff W. was born. This goes back to the 1960s, way back when Rob and I were 2 years old.
Yep.
So this is the Skrulls had been on the planet Earth, and they had been shape-shifting and manipulating people and taking people's places. So the whole premise of Secret Invasion was, who can you trust? That was the tagline by Brian Michael Bendis, and it was anyone could be a Skrull. So Captain America could be a Skrull, Jeff W. could be a Skrull. Anyone could be a Skrull, and you didn't know it for years. And they actually had some characters like Spider-Woman, Jessica Drew, who were revealed to be a Skrull after they died. They reverted back to their Skrull bodies. So that was the whole premise and fun of that series, was any superhero, you did not know who was a Skrull and who was the actual person. Then when this was announced, I was like, how are they going to do this in a TV show, in a small format thing? At first I thought it was going to be a movie, but then when I realized it was going to be a TV show, I still wasn't clear exactly how they were going to adapt it. And now it's clear to me, with all of these MCU adaptations, Civil War is the same way. They are in name only. There's very little that is like the comic books in these live action formats. So that was the gist of the comic book series, was anyone could be a Skrull.
Right. So the Secret Invasion series follows Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury. He's back from outer space. He's back from his space vacation, where he was presumably just looking at simulations of beaches and losing his shoes. That's really all I can say about what he was doing out there. And he made his way back to Earth. And the Skrulls, who have been refugees on planet Earth since the 90s, have been patiently waiting for Samuel L. Jackson to find them a new planet to live on. And Samuel L. Jackson looked at maybe 2 or 3 planets and said, I don't know if there's but can you do me a favor? Can you infiltrate all the secret organizations and government agencies and this, that, and the other? I need you to be my spies, but don't worry, I'm still looking to find a planet for you. That's basically the plot, or not the plot, but the setup of the conflict within Secret Invasion. And then it follows an underground gang, a secret gang of Skrulls who are fed up with Nick Fury not finding the paradise that he had promised, and they are going to incite World War III to have the humans fight each other so they can take advantage of the squabble and wipe out humans completely by making themselves super. I don't know if you know this, Jeff, but Skrulls, all they can do is shapeshift. They don't got no powers outside of shapeshifting.
Boring. But go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. All they got are those big old ears, those weird looking eyes, and those bald
weird
heads,
mouth,
and weird big mouths, and pointy teeth. They're aliens, actually. Are we being speciesist? I hope we're not. I hope this doesn't come off as speciesist. So
it's the chin that Jeff's talking about, often referred to as the ball sack chin. But the mouth is fine. Not
that's exactly what I was on that.
So it's cool on Thanos, but not cool on the Skrulls. Interesting, Jeff.
Cool on none of them. Cool on none of them.
And the Skrulls, their big ace in the pocket is they've invented a way to make themselves super Skrulls, if you will, Jeff, by using the DNA, the very conveniently harvested DNA of every superhero ever to exist in the MCU.
Stored in Kazakhstan, of all places.
In a grave, in one of Nick Fury's 36 graves that he has. It's you know what it looks like, Jeff? The DNA is like he breathes on the spoilers, obviously, for Secret Invasion. I guess if we didn't say that, well, we spoiled it at the top. Maria Hill dies in like the first episode. he has one of his secret graves, and he just breathes on it, and the grave opens up, and what looks like a squeeze it. They're using squeeze it technology, Jeff, full of DNA. It's just a bunch of liquid in a squeeze it bottle, and that's. Did you know? DNA is basically just liquid, and it's all mixed in there. All the superheroes. Sorry, it's just so stupid.
Oh my god! Perfect.
This is a Kool-Aid. Squeeze it. Yes, not one of those old OG ones. This is a new squeeze it bottle, so it's totally secure.
We're recording first thing in the morning. Yeah, I haven't settled into my body yet. Anyway, so my eyes are all red and teary. Sorry for anybody if this goes on YouTube. And so all the DNA is in this bottle, and the end game. I forget the name of the bad guy. Oh man, I remember all the stupid details, but not the details that are
Drake. I call him Drake.
Drakic. We'll call him Drakic. He wants to use this to essentially give themselves superpowers. He wants to inject the DNA from superheroes into himself so he can have superpowers. So he does this somewhere halfway in the series. He injects himself with a Flora Colossus. That's Groot for the layperson, Jeff. Where he can stretch, be super stretchy. And while they don't have the rights yet, or rights isn't the wrong word, but they don't have a logical reason to make him a super Skrull like in the comics, with the Fantastic Four abilities, because of course the Fantastic Four haven't been introduced yet. At first I thought they were using the analogs for these powers, like,
for the Guardians?
Okay, he's got it. Yeah, like Guardians, okay, you got a Groot arm that substitutes to Mr. Fantastic. You can have a big, strong arm, that can be Drax, or that can be the Hulk or something. Obviously, Human Torch isn't there, but they're using the Extremists, which is a real deep cut, I think, for superpowers. Nothing so much for the Invisible Woman, at least nothing that made itself obvious to me. But I thought, okay, I get what they're doing. They can't do the Super Skrull like in the comics because they haven't introduced the Fantastic Four yet. But they're making do. But that's not what they do at all, Jeff. they just say, yeah, let's just give them every power from every character that's ever existed in the MCU. And by they, of course, I mean Drake.
Yes.
And the Daenerys. Is that what was that her name on Game of Thrones? Khaleesi, whatever. The girl from Game of Thrones. That 4'9" little girl.
Emily Clark is her name.
Emily Clark, who was good in this, I think.
I think she was Emilia Clarke. Guys, come
Emilia.
on. Emilia Clarke.
Emilia Clarke.
She was good, but she ultimately gets the one up on Drake because she pretended to be Samuel L. Jackson. And again, we're not going episode to episode here in the descriptions, presuming people listening, already have seen this.
It was only 6 episodes. This was the shortest series that they've done so far. And I was actually really surprised when I saw that there was only 6 episodes. And it became clear as we were watching, and I'm sure, Rob, as you were watching, it kept getting less and less. Okay, there's 3 episodes left. There's 2 episodes left. All right, there's 1 episode left. How are they going to wrap this up? Like, there was so many plot threads and things that they hadn't been addressing and that they weren't answering. Now, I was watching it week to week, so the water cooler speculation week to week was rampant. Everybody was like, are they going to answer this thing from Captain Marvel? Are they going to answer this thing from Loki? Like all of these ties. But I think, and this is going to lead into our bigger talk of the MCU in 2023, I think at this point, I've started to realize that it's just too much for them to be like comic books where they can connect everything to each other. The things that are connective tissues are, for the most part, in name only. And they're trying to make this illusion that everything is connected. But as we're watching each one of these series, it's becoming clear that, they're focusing on their show. And all right, we can have a little tie in the background, but it's not exclusively. This is a connective piece that leads to this thing, which is why I think we were so excited when the MCU started, when they started building towards the Avengers and then eventually towards Endgame. That was the fun of it, was, oh, how does this connect to this? And you felt like you had to watch everything in order to understand it. And now in 2023, I think we've come to the point where that is no longer the case. And this one specifically, I realized that, okay, this is like a political thriller with Samuel L. Jackson, but that's about it. Like, there's very little that ties it to the overall MCU. And at the end
outside
of
the
this,
superpower showdown at the very end, where they're like, "Remember this? Remember this?"
I'm wondering what is going to come next. Oh yeah, we're going to tie this, because Khaleesi gets all the powers, Jeff. She gets
Oh yeah,
every
I should say
single.
I left off. I fell asleep. She had gotten shot last
Oh,
night,
okay,
and then
okay.
I passed
She's
out.
not dead, just so you know.
Yeah,
I
So
figured. Yeah.
that was a fake out. She came back. First of all, it was kind of like, well, I don't want to spoil other things, but
We're already
there's
spoiling
another
it.
Spoil them
there's
all.
another
Spoil 'em
show
all.
where someone dies and you're meant to think that this is a recent show. You're meant to think that they're dead,
Friends.
and then they just come back the next episode. Nothing happens. I think did she revert back to her scroll body? I think that's what happens.
She does.
I
No,
feel like
she
maybe
just
she-
laid there and then didn't revert back, as far as I remember, because she had the extremis in her body.
Well, that was revealed later.
Yeah,
I think we are meant to believe, because I want to say, don't quote me on this, but I want to say she did revert back to her scroll form. So the week-to-week chatter was like, oh yeah, she's gone. Why did they even cast Emilia Clarke if they were just going to kill her within the first couple episodes? But yeah, she comes back from the healing powers of Extremis, which is from Iron Man 3, Jeff. So at the end, they leave her with every single power in the Marvel Universe. So she's now the most powerful character of all time. And she just goes away. All right, goodbye.
yeah.
What is going to
There's
happen
this
with
one
this character?
being with every superpower ever to exist. And when I say every superpower, Jeff, hold on, I want to tell Jeff this. Even Ebony Maw, she turns into her arm turns into Ebony Maw for a second, rings and all for some reason. The rings even show up on her fingers. I don't understand
that was like,
why.
With Drax's, so she turned into Drax's arm, and they
Oh,
gave
yeah.
the
Oh,
Drax tattoo.
geez.
And Drax tattoos were there.
Yeah. Why does he have the tattoo? Because the audience is like, oh, I guess that now I know that's the confirmation that's Drax. It's not just a gray arm.
I would have put it together. If it was just a big, strong gray arm based on the context, I would have figured it out. Same with the Ebony Maw, because apparently magic is in Ebony Maw's DNA. It's just a power that he has, because she starts doing magic.
So
I was like, oh man.
That leads me to believe they're not going to touch on that again. We'll never see her again. We're never going to see these powers again. Like that's what I'm talking about, this connective tissue. I don't think they're thinking about the greater MCU, the overall, how does this tie into anything? So that, to me, was kind of lackluster, especially because I like Emilia Clarke. I liked her. Like Rob said, I thought she did a great job in the show itself, but it was just weird that the way that they ended it.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, Jeff, Rhodey's a Skrull. Maybe you knew that. Maybe you didn't.
That ends up being the
I got
only.
spoiled on that, but maybe Vactor will talk about. But I think Vactor might have sent me something, or I saw a tweet that was for that the reveal of that. Like if this had come out 10 years ago or whatever, or 8 years ago, like that would have been like one of the biggest, shockers. But people are tired of Marvel. Was kind of the insinuation there, that it wasn't like nobody cared because nobody's watching this.
I don't even think that's the case. It wasn't even a big shock to me. Now, I had been spoiled on that, but I had forgot. Just because I wasn't watching the show. And then as soon as he turned into a Skrull, I was like, oh yeah, I did know that. Because the whole time I'm like, why is Rhodey acting this way? This is all completely out of character for Rhodey. And And then he turned into a Skrull, and I remembered, and I rolled my eyes, and it didn't have the impact that I think they wanted it to have, because it's not like you could go back and watch Endgame or Iron Man 3 or something like that, where they threw in these little hints that he might have been a Skrull this entire time, and we didn't put the pieces together. It's not like it was lost or anything. It was just, he's been a Skrull this whole time, and the real Rhodey, he's in the basement of the Skrull compound, and he was just there. It was, it just wasn't it wasn't impressive. It wasn't giving you the impact that I think they were trying to emulate from the comics, that so-and-so's been a Skrull this entire time, especially when that's really the only one. Martin Freeman is a Skrull at the very beginning, but that's not really him. Or they make that obvious that that's not really him at the top.
Yeah.
So
that ends up being the only. Remember, I said the premise of the comic book is anybody could be a Skrull, right? And there were actual consequences of the people who turned out. Like I said, Spider-Woman was a huge one. Elektra was another one, where it was like, oh, wow, we've been reading 20 years of comics and this person's been a Skrull. So that actually had an impact. This one, they're attempting to do that, like Rob said, but we're not going to, I don't think, fully get the benefit of that. And everybody's talking about, so when the real Rhodey comes out of his trance at the end of the series, he's like in a hospital gown and he's limping, that was after he got shot out of the sky in Civil War and came down, and he hasn't seen Tony. He doesn't know that Tony Stark is dead. He doesn't know like any of the stuff that's happened in the Marvel Universe since then. So that, I think, might be the only interesting thing. I want to see his reaction to what's happened in the Marvel Universe.
So you think he was a Skrull in Endgame and Infinity War?
I was going to say, even that meme of him saying that he's going to kill baby Thanos, that's a Skrull now. That is no longer Rhodey. So he's.
Is there any shots of Don Cheadle bleeding in Endgame or Infinity War? I wonder.
That I don't know. Yeah, because the Skrulls do have a different color blood. They got that
purple blood, Jeff. It's that grape jelly.
And just so all the non-comic fans know, the Skrull that Rhodey was, the person who was impersonating Rhodey, is a character from the comics called Rava. She is a Skrull, like a known Skrull, I should say. So it's not just some random Skrull that took over Rhodey. That is a character from the comics.
Right. So overall, I mean, I don't think the show was bad necessarily. It was fine. Like, to me, it's been on par with most of what's been put out in Phase 4. For the most part, I can find something to enjoy in just about everything they've put out since Endgame. I don't think anything is inherently bad, as a lot of people like to make things seem on Twitter or YouTube, etc., etc. Because hating things sells podcasts.
Right. When I was watching it from week to week and everybody was taking a dump on it, I was like, this isn't as bad as everyone says it is. Now, it's not the best MCU show. It's not Loki, but it's not as bad as people were making it out to be. But I was watching a Screen Crush video on YouTube, and they did actually a really good job of talking about the production difficulties on this. This had a $212 million budget, and everybody's like, why is this cost so much? Why is this as much as a movie? And what ended up happening, I found out on the Screen Crush video, they reshot the entire thing. So they filmed it, and then something happened, and they reshot it. And so that's why. They basically doubled their budget.
They filmed it twice?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I can't remember exactly what happened. Watch the Screen Crush video. But something happened where they had to go back and reshoot everything and change things. And they're also speculating on some of the plot points changed. So they were going in a different direction, and then they had to re-pivot. And I think they were filming during COVID. Like, there was a bunch of things. I think we're going to see a little bit on the behind the scenes that Disney Plus puts out. But I'm with Rob. I enjoyed the performances, especially Samuel L. Jackson. Like, if you like Samuel L. Jackson or if you like Nick Fury, this is like the Nick Fury show. And he's getting up there in age, so we're probably not going to see too much more from Samuel L. Jackson. We know he's in the Marvels just from the trailer, but I don't know how much more he's going to be doing. I think he's in his 70s.
Yeah, I mean, he can only be around. He's not Bob Barker, you know. He's not going to live to 99.
I will
R.I.P.
say
74.
I'm trying to think of like, and obviously I haven't watched every single Marvel series because it's so saturated, and I don't think I can like actually stand to watch just endless Marvel content anymore. But like a super strong opening. Like I thought the opening, like when I turned it on, I was basically sitting under my TV and just getting managing all the cables and stuff.
Yeah.
And just doing that while I was setting all that stuff up. And I was like, wow, this is like what a really good like opening. Like the first like I don't know 20 to 30 minutes of the first episode. I was like, all right, like I don't I'm really liking this. And then by the time the night ended, when I was tired and I'm just finishing the third episode, I'm like, what was her name again? Like I was, like Rob earlier. I'm like, Khaleesi, but like, I don't know what her alien name is. I don't know what's going on.
Gaia.
A little. It's not bad. I just feel like it's not holding my attention. Like you said, Vector, like Loki or something like that. And also the premise of the Skrulls. I understand that it's it's huge and it is somewhat interesting to me. I think the problem for me is the payoff of that stuff. Like the only thing I can equate it to is it's almost to me when I see that War Machine, whatever his name is a Skrull. It's like, to me, if the implication is that he's been a Skrull this entire time or whatever, and that's what they're leading it off to be. Like, I don't go like, oh my God. I'm like, for me, it feels like a TV show that ended as a dream, right? Like it feels like nothing. Like it feels like it's wasting my time almost in a sense. And I wouldn't say that it's like that with everything.
Well, you have to be
like,
yet.
I don't know.
Were you invested in Rhodey's character before?
I'm invested in no Marvel characters right now.
If
I will say
that was the thing about the comic. Like I said, the crossover of the comics was anybody could be a Skrull. If you were invested in the character and it was like, oh, Rhodey's my favorite guy. Like I love Don Cheadle, I loved Rhodey, and then you find out, oh, wait a minute, that wasn't Rhodey the whole time. It was somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
That
Right.
is interesting to me. But again, if you're not into the character, if you're not locked in, it's like, okay, who cares? He was a Skrull. I'm thinking about Captain America, and you're over here talking about Rhodey. Like, I don't care.
Right. Well, but even then, like, if you were like, oh, hey, he's back, and then he's used, then but it just feels like it's like, oh, so was all that stuff before, like I guess you could.
Well, I
guess it's somewhat interesting, but it feels like less meaningful to me at that point. If he was just this like tool to, now he's a Skrull.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
The problem with that is he didn't do anything during that time. If you think about the time from the end of Civil War until Endgame, he wasn't a major part of it. Like he had these little comic relief moments. Like I said, the Thanos meme that we see all the time, and him making fun of Star-Lord. Oh, he's an idiot. But there's not a whole lot of Rhodey, meat on the bone. So for him to be a Skrull, it's like, okay, now what? Like, what if Daredevil was a Skrull? What if, like I said, Captain America was a Skrull? What if Steve Rogers was a Skrull? And there was a lot of stuff. Like I said, that Screen Crush put out some really good videos as these were coming out. They did breakdowns of every episode, but they were talking about how everything that was with the president was kind of like, you could tell the budget restrictions because they were reshooting it, and it was like, oh, we got to pull this in. We can't go as far as we want to. There's scenes, Jeff, you didn't get to this point. At one point, the president gets shot, I'm sorry, his car gets flipped over. So they take him to the hospital, and there's no one around. There's no Secret Service. This is the president of the United States.
Oh,
there's nobody.
Yeah. He's got
in the room.
Rhodey's around for some reason.
Yeah. And so they point out, like, this show should have been more expensive. Like, it should have looked more expensive, but it looks cheap. That's a huge thing that people were talking about when what they didn't like about it was it looks cheap. So there was stuff like that. And then how does that lead into the next Captain America movie, New World Order, where the president, we already know the president gets replaced by Han Solo. Harrison Ford is playing the president. He's Thunderbolt Ross, and he's playing the president. So how does this president get taken out? And at the end of this series, he comes out against not only the Skrulls. After the Skrulls are revealed to be on the planet, he's like, I'm putting out a hit on all alien life. Like, he puts out a press conference, and he's like, if you're an alien, I'm coming for you. I'm taking every alien out. I don't care
He's
if
quoting
you're
word for word.
Superman. I don't care who you are. I'm coming for you. You better lawyer up, motherfucker. I'm coming for you. So that's like the ending of the show is the president of the United States coming out against all alien life forms. If you say "Como estás," I'm coming for you. Like,
it's
that
wild.
was what the
Hulk
implications.
Hogan, we coming for you.
It was real drastic, and it came out of nowhere. Like,
yeah.
I was like, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
so that's
no aliens allowed.
That's the ending of it.
No,
I think
Thor. Like, hey, aliens. Like, there's some good aliens.
I don't. And Screen Crush kind of speculated on how is that going to relate to Asgard, because Asgard is on Earth right now.
Yeah, they got new Asgard on Earth. Yeah. That's right.
So apparently they are calling out every Asgardian that is on Earth right now. So are they? See, that would be exciting to me, but I don't think it's going to live up to that. I don't think they're actually going to go through with those plot lines.
They won't.
And so that's where I think the discussion of where are we now in the MCU is interesting to me, because, like Jeff, I think is a good litmus test of a lot of the people that we interact with, a lot of the people that we talk to, of I was really invested at the beginning, and now I couldn't care less. Like, there's nothing about it except for the things that intrigued me before. Example, Loki season 1, Jeff enjoyed. So Loki season 2, when that comes out, I'm pretty sure Jeff is going to be watching that because he liked Loki season 1.
Right.
So anything that's new, I don't think Jeff is going to be, and by Jeff, I mean the public. Like, I don't think they're going to be as invested as stuff that they had already seen that they enjoyed. Marvel is trying to, like with Miss Marvel, with Moon Knight, with She-Hulk, they're trying to have all these new characters come in, and I'm enjoying it as a comic book fan, but I don't think the general reaction is not as strong as when the MCU was building up to Endgame.
Right.
And actually, Rob, did you hear Jeff Kanata talk? I don't know if he talked about this on a DLC podcast, but he was saying for him, I was listening to the Filmcast podcast, and he was saying Endgame is the end of the MCU for him. He's like, it peaked in Endgame. That's the end of the MCU. I don't need the MCU to continue anymore. They stuck the landing. They did it. They won. And I was thinking, I was like, number one, I think that's true. I don't think they're ever going to top Endgame unless some amazing creative force comes in and it just changes everything. I don't think they will ever get back to the levels of Endgame. I want them to, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think they can, because the Endgame has the same problem that the first Avengers movie had, in my opinion, which were both great films. Is that when the Avengers came out, it was the first time you'd ever seen anything like that. There's never been anything like it. And outside of it being a good movie, the novelty of the experience was really driving your enjoyment. Same with Endgame. Okay, they put in this big overarching story of the Infinity Stones, which leads up to this 2-part finale where every superhero you've ever seen in the MCU is together taking care of Thanos. Again, something you'd never seen before, not just in a superhero movie, but in any movie. It's not like you're seeing Scooby-Doo and James Bond and the Transformers all fight, Optimus Prime or Megatron or whoever. This is the only time it's ever happened. And so I think the fact that you're seeing the same thing again, although that's not necessarily bad, but you're missing the novelty, and you were at such a high. Marvel movies can't stay at a high. Every single Marvel movie or TV show can't be an event, And so I think it's just the dopamine rush. You got too high on the dopamine, and now you're way back down. And they're working their way back up, and it might be great, it might not be, but it'll never be as great because it'll never be the first time you saw it.
Yeah. Now, we also have to take into account new viewers are going to be coming in, the next generation of kids, or people coming into their adult watching lives are going to be coming in. And so I think we're going to see a shift of people that were into that first MCU getting kind of phasing out, and a new generation is going to be coming in. So they're going to have that, as well as some of the old heads like me who are going to still be watching. But I think DC, we saw with the Zack Snyder DC universe, they had that problem of being second. And like Rob said, the novelty is no longer there. So with Justice League, and they just never fully put together the Justice League with the Zack Snyderverse, but they just didn't have that same level of excitement. But I think if they make it a great story, it's going to trump everything. You're going to forget about it not being the first, but we just haven't seen an amazing storyline. And the comics prove that we've had 40 years, 50 years of great stories, right, in the comics. So it's not like, all right, when one storyline is great, we can never have another one. Like no one else can write one. Obviously, new writers are coming in all the time, and everyone has a new story to tell. What we just haven't gotten that next great story yet in the MCU. That's what I'm waiting for, because so far Loki has been, I think, the standout to me of the MCU. Besides Endgame, I think Loki is the one. So I'm really looking forward to season 2, which is actually coming out in October. So we're not too far away from Loki season 2, but we just got to get a great thing. And I think the MCU will be back, baby.
Yes. And then
I think,
continue.
To me, the problem with everything, with Marvel right now is, like you said, Vector, I think the core of it is story related. And I feel like it's also, oversaturation. Like, I just, go look at, everybody's getting a show. Every little, who cares character that's not super relevant, and I think, a story can fix that for sure, right? Like, I think that has been proven with these movies and the shows before. But it's just it's like every other month there's a new show that I'm behind on and I can't keep up. And and now I'm watching Secret Invasion. I'm like, all right, well, I got 4 other things I need to watch, and this isn't really entertaining me. So there's just so much that if it's not great, I'm out, basically.
I've had that conversation before with people where I think Marvel it was a gift and a curse. The success of the connected universe and then Endgame, the final result. And actually, I will even throw in the No Way Home Spider-Man. Like that was like the end game for Spider-Man's universe.
A little epilogue.
Right.
Those two things felt epic, and like you had to watch them. But it was because we had that 10 years of backstory of caring about those things. But even with Spider-Man, I think they took a thing like the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man and elevated it and raised it, because No Way Home was so good. You were like, oh wow, those Andrew Garfield movies were not as good, but this to me makes it better. We look back at it and it makes it better. So I think there is room. I'm sorry. My point about that was Marvel kind of shot themselves in the foot because it set everybody's expectations up to what Jeff just said. Everything has to be an event. And that's probably not the best way to look at it. I think the best way to look at it is, if you like Miss Marvel, if you like that, here's a show for you. You can go over there and watch that pocket universe, but it shouldn't be tied to, I have to watch this, I have to stay up, and everything has to be an event, because if everything is event, nothing is an event. Like the whole reason why something is an event is special is because the other things aren't, and they're leading up, and the little pieces, the building blocks are adding up. The sum is greater than its parts. Like the things are adding up to be something bigger. And so if everything is big, then it doesn't add up to anything. But again, like we talked about, they haven't even been connecting everything. Like if you watched Moon Knight, I've watched every single MCU thing, and I don't think you need to watch Moon Knight. I don't think you need to see a lot of these shows.
What about Falcon and the Winter Soldier? How about
You
that?
don't-
Instant
I like-
classic.
I like that, but you don't need to watch that in order to understand anything. It's just
Not
if you
yet,
like
anyway.
Anthony Mackie. Well, I don't think, like we talked about. I don't think it will be. I would like it to be, but that show also had the same problem. I think this show had, Secret Invasion had, was you were with the villain up to a certain point. At the beginning, Gravik was like, you could understand. Oh yeah, Nick Fury lied to him. Everything that he said, he didn't do. And yeah, I'd be mad too if I was in that situation. And then there's a certain point, and the same thing happens in Falcon and the Winter Soldier with the Flag Smashers. You're with the villains up to a certain point. Then it's, I want to say the last episode or the second to last episode. All right, let's just murder a bunch of civilians.
Yeah, we're killing everybody and we're taking over the world.
And it's like, oh, okay, I'm not with you anymore. So this doesn't, like, now you're just a mustache twirling villain, and it's no longer interesting to me. It's interesting when the villain has a point and you're like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I would do that. Maybe if I was Magneto and I was tortured in a Jewish, camp, maybe I would. Maybe I would kill those guys.
Maybe I would
turn
take
on
the
them.
Golden Gate Bridge and
That makes
throw it
sense.
over there.
But when these guys are like, and they specifically, in the way these shows are written, you can see, pull the curtain back and you can see how the sausage is made. And it's like, all right, we're going to write them to be empathetic. And to a certain point, all right, now we have to make the audience not like them anymore. So we have to turn something. And in the Flag Smashers, it's like specifically, let's kill a bunch of innocent people, and we'll ask them, hey, was that the right thing to do? And the villain will be like, yes, that was the right thing to do. Just so you know, there's no shadow of a doubt that these guys are bad. Gravik has the same thing in this, where he has a scene where one of his followers is like, wait a minute, should we be killing innocents? And Gravik's like, yes, and now I'm going to kill you. And he kills the guy. And it's like, what? This guy was his follower. He was his loyal.
Who else is going to
time.
question me?
Yeah, and he just turns into this lunatic, like this raving lunatic. And you're like, all right, I'm not on board with Gravik anymore. He's not a good guy. So I think that's some of the problems with these things is like, if you have, like the Joker in The Dark Knight, it was like, first of all, that performance, you're just like, all right, this is electric. You got to watch what's going to happen here. But also the Joker being this agent of chaos, and like there's interesting things about him. There's certain people that can relate to anarchy and all this stuff. That's a villain that I want to see in the MCU. Because if you think about it, I think the most interesting villains in the MCU have been Loki and Thanos. And then Loki, they turned into a hero. Now he's a good guy. And Thanos, they just kind of like, all right, he's gone. We're going to switch he won. That's it. Now we're just going to go to a different alternate timeline, Thanos, and then kill him. So I think the MCU going forward at this point in 2023, the biggest problem for me is the lack of connection. And we talked about this, Rob, on I think it was after Thor. We talked about like, where is this going? They hadn't announced the next Avengers movie at that point. They hadn't announced Phase 6 or 5 and 6. And so with Phase 4, we were just kind of like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know where this is leading. What is this all ending up to? And that's that expectation that they led us and they gave us. Everything has to lead up to an Avengers movie, because they did 3 phases of that. And it was like, it has to lead up to something. And now we're in Phase 4 and it's like, well, what is this leading to? And we got Kang, but now we don't know if Kang is going to be there anymore. We don't know if that's going to be a thing. We don't know what is happening with Kang. So the state of the MCU right now is just confusion to me. And like Jeff said, you don't have to, it's no longer must see TV. It's no longer an event to watch everything. And I think the only way to bring that back is just make good shows, make stuff that people like. Here's a good example. In the Star Wars universe, a lot of people didn't like the prequels. A lot of people didn't like the sequels. When Mandalorian came out, everybody was talking about Baby Yoda. Everybody was talking about Mandalorian. And it was this new level. And Jeff, like I said, Jeff is a good litmus test for a lot of just the general audience. Jeff, when I talked to him, it was like, Mando is great. Like, this is something I want out of Star Wars. And Jeff, did you watch Andor?
I tried, but the beginning was rough.
Okay.
So I have not actually watched the whole thing.
That's also a thing I've heard a lot. And Andor, you have to at least watch the first 3 episodes. That's when you can make a judgment on it. But anyways, the point about that was Andor is something that is universally praised. If you look, everyone loves Andor. Like, they look at it as, this is not just good Star Wars show. This is a good TV show, and just happens to be in the Star Wars universe. So if they make stuff like that in the MCU, then we won't even be talking about it. It won't even be a thing. It'll just be like, I love the MCU again. Everything is great because they're making great product. And 2 things, COVID and now this writer's strike and actor's strike have just pushed everything back. And so I don't know what's going to happen with the MCU. I don't know if they will ever get back to that level of Endgame again. It just seems like too much of an uphill climb for them to get back there now.
Right. And then for 2023, we have to look forward to I Am Groot season 2, which isn't really a thing. It's just little shorts.
It's little shorts. It's like 5-minute things.
My little boy enjoys them for what they are, but he's not.
I like them too.
He's not saying, how does Groot relate to the MCU? He doesn't even know what the MCU is. Loki season 2, like we've discussed, is coming out October 6th this year.
All over that McDonald's advertising, Loki.
That's right. It's on every McDonald's bag that I get. Echo supposedly is coming out this year, although we haven't seen
in
it
its entirety.
Yeah,
so
which I'm fine with.
Yeah,
actually, I prefer that they would do it that way, but I know I'm in the minority when it comes to that. I'm mildly looking forward to Echo, but mainly because it's going to involve. I know Vincent D'Onofrio is going to be involved as the Kingpin, or at least that's what the word on the street, the scuttlebutt, Jeff.
Yes.
And even possibly Matt Murdock, Charlie Cox back as Daredevil in a minor role in that show, which I love. I'm interested in seeing how they take Daredevil, the characterization of Daredevil from She-Hulk, and then shift him into more of a serious tone, which would obviously lean into his own series. And who knows when that's coming out, because that was filming also, as far as I'm aware.
Yes.
And now is not filming. Same with Deadpool and all that stuff too. So that's supposedly coming out this year, but we'll see. X-Men 97 is expected to release before the end of the year, but might be delayed to 2024. And then What If Season 2 was supposed to be out this year, but now it's maybe coming out at the very tail end of the year versus the beginning of the year next year. And that's the TV shows. For the remainder of the year, as far as movies go, we've got the Marvels coming out November 10th, which I'm looking forward to. I know people are down on Captain Marvel and Alison Brie, or not Alison Brie.
No, yeah, I just blanked on her name too.
I've been watching Community. Oh God! Of course, Brie Larson. Thank you. Who was also in Community? I'm watching these later episodes of Community. You know, like, what is she doing here? I never watched the last 2 seasons, and so I'm actually watching
I didn't
those right now. But anyway, I'm mildly hyped on that. I think Brie Larson is a good enough actress. I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with the characterization of Captain Marvel so far within the MCU. I know a lot of people are just down on her for some reason, but
well, that one, it's the interplay of all 3 Marvels I think is what is capturing my attention. And the Jeff W. staple of using a Beastie Boys song in the trailer of the Marvels got me. I said, this is going to be a good... This is going to be a good movie.
No Sleep Till Brooklyn.
Like the Beastie Boys, stop using fucking the main songs, people. Come on, let's change it up here a little bit. And
Squeeze,
and
Jeff.
All these people are milquetoast Marvel fucking. That's why all this Marvel stuff sucks. Is it's all milquetoast. Give me some like different shit. Give me a unique voice in here creating these things, and then I'll.
Well, they're not using the Aquabats on Jeff. They're not getting no Weird Al on that soundtrack.
Well, I would argue I would argue that She-Hulk was that, and people just took a dump on it. Like, there's a woman. We don't want to see this.
She-Hulk was great. In my opinion,
I loved She-Hulk. I thought that was a great show.
So for the Marvels, presumably you need to have watched. You need to have watched Secret Invasion, Ms. Marvel, the TV series, WandaVision, and
Captain Marvel.
I feel like there's one more, but I might be wrong on that. So it's circling back to what Trent was saying before, all this required viewing for the diehards, but can it appeal to somebody who has a very loose understanding of the MCU? Like my mom's not going to go see the Marvels and really enjoy it, I don't think. But I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully it's good, and then we've got, again, the rest of the MCU to look forward to. We were supposed to get Ironheart this year and Agatha Coven of Chaos as well, but who knows what's going on with those shows. So we'll see. Yeah,
I think that's the biggest thing issue right now is like these strikes. We don't know what's, Dune 2 just got pushed back, and I was really looking forward to seeing that this year. Now that's got another, everything is getting pushed because the studios are like, oh wait, we're not going to have any content, so we got to push the stuff that's already ready. We got to push that to next year. So that's the biggest what if right now, is like, what is actually going to come out while these, during this period of nothing being created.
Right. So we've got that to look forward to. I feel like from the MCU, from the start to the end of Phase 3, virtually every single movie was getting better than the last one. It was just uphill. And now, while I don't think anything's inherently bad or terrible with Season 4 and beyond, to me it feels like it's just been the same. They haven't been getting better. They've just been equally good. Which is not great, but it's not bad. So hopefully we can get back on that uphill climb with the MCU. Yeah. I'm optimistic. But I think that's going to do it, boys, for the state of the MCU. Appreciate your time here. Thanks for inviting us on to the Vactorverse. And don't forget to check out the Sandbox Gamers, where we're talking everything video game news and the games we've been playing and everything in between. Think of us as the extended universe of the Vactorverse. Don't forget to subscribe. We're all on YouTube. We're all on TikTok, Instagram, all the places. I don't have to tell you about Vactorverse because this is a main Vactorverse episode. So do what you need to do. And last but not least, everybody, I like to end every episode of the Sandbox Gamers. GG, everybody, GG.